In this week's episode, we're going to discuss 3 critical checkpoints for reaching the next level of your potential. It's very important. We're going to get into some practical things I've been doing in my life, and I want to share them with you so that they would add value to yours as well. So stay tuned. You are listening to The Joshua Mentality. Hello and welcome to another week and another episode of The Joshua Mentality. I'd like to welcome you all in on this wonderful hump day. I am Joshua, and it is, guess it, week 30. Did I say that correct? Yes. We're on number 30 as far as our weekly countdown is concerned. And for those of you who are new, this weekly countdown is to the new year. So that means we have 30 weeks left in this year. And that may sound like a lot, but trust me, we started at 56. It is not a lot. It has flown by unbelievably. In fact, on this wonderful hump day, we've arrived in June. And if you're in Florida, you know what that means. The heat is on, right? Where it's about that time for we get around the hottest time of the year and showers every day. And as a natural born Floridian, I love it. I'm okay with it. So welcome again to our new listeners. If this is your first time, I want to inform you and remind some of you that this podcast is all about life purpose and living out the success that is your destiny, and doing so by having conversations around this topic of life purpose. And I'm very passionate about this because I'm passionate about people like you listening. And my passion is really rooted in wanting to see everyone reach their full potential or as close to it as possible. I believe that's where great communities are built, where great families are sustained and established. And it's just all great things come from when we are actively moving towards our potential. So every week I show up to remind you how awesome you are, and the gold that is inside of you, known as your potential, kind of sitting dormant under the surface like a big old iceberg. All right. So that little 30-second infomercial was for our newbies, our new TJM tribers, as I like to sometimes call you. But yeah, man, that's what this is about. And I hope you get some value out of today. Okay. And we do so through conversations, even though it's kind of one-sided because I can't hear you talk back. But I like to keep this thing at a conversational tone where I just share things in my life that have helped me really tap into and engage my potential, and I want to see the same for yours. All right. So if you get something valuable, give me a shout. I've been getting a lot of great feedback from listeners, and it's just very encouraging. So I want to take another moment on this episode to say thank you and to share the purpose and the why behind all of this, as I usually like to do. I think that's important. All right. So for those of you who are back for another week, I'm sorry to remind you that over and over again, but I think it's important. But we're also going to segue into this week's conversation, and it's really centered around potential. And potential in the form of development, and development through checkpoints. Yes, that's right. Checkpoints. There are 3 critical checkpoints, I believe, that are crucial when it comes to reaching the next level of your potential. And maybe that next level is the first level, but that's fine. There's no judgment here. Whatever that is, I think these 3 checkpoints will help you because checkpoints are really, here's a definition for you. If you're wondering what's a checkpoint, if you've never heard that term, here's how I will simplify it for you. A checkpoint is nothing more than a verification of current position and what the navigation course is to get to the next position. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Checkpoints, they just verify where you are currently and then help you navigate to the next position, which is the next checkpoint. And that's important when it comes to our potential, because if whatever we don't measure, we can't really get a sense of how far we've grown or where our journey has taken us. So that measurement is very important when it comes to creating and hitting the target that is our potential. All right. So before we get into those three checkpoints, which will take up the majority of our conversation, I thought it was something really cool as I was prepping for this episode. Those of you who know me, you know I am what I've officially and lovingly um, termed. I'm an after-school geek, meaning during my time in school, I was terrible, did not like to do much studying, and wasn't a very good student, if I'm honest. But a light bulb went off after I graduated, and I just fell in love with learning. And so now I'm officially an after school geek. And every now and then, when it comes to prep, there's something that catches my eye that's really outside of what I was looking for. And this week was one of those weeks. I found some information around scientific information around what's called cell cycle checkpoints. Now, before you roll your eyes to the back of your head, I want to inform you I am not going to geek out too hard here. Number one, because I can't. This is way beyond my knowledge. I am not a scientist. But number two, because I think that'd be really boring, and I don't want to do that to you, all right? But there was something I thought was pretty cool when it comes to cell cycle checkpoints and the conversation around potential checkpoints, life potential checkpoints. And here's the key. Understanding first what cell cycle checkpoints are. And they are simply surveillance mechanisms that monitor the order, integrity, and fidelity of major events of the cell cycle. Okay? These include growth to the appropriate cell size, the replication and integrity of the chromosomes, and their accurate segmentation at mitosis. Now, if that didn't dull your brain over with a bunch of scientific jargon, don't worry. There's no more. I'm not going to keep pushing my luck here. The point of that long definition is our cells within our body have checkpoints. Your DNA down to your makeup, like your actual scientific makeup, there are checkpoints. So my point is, this is very important. Our cells have to check for order, integrity, and the fidelity of the major events, which means kind of the spreading and the replication. So if our being is made that way, that gives us a clear kind of roadmap on how we can use that same process to measure and create targets for our potential. Okay? The key here, though, is to have a plan on how to do that. So here are the three critical kind of checkpoints for reaching the next level of your potential. And these are three things that have been very helpful in my life and have really helped me to engage high levels of my potential. And I think they'll do the same for you. All right. So with no further ado, let's get to the first one. The first one here, now that we've established that this is important, the first checkpoint, if you're serious about developing your potential, the first checkpoint is the checkpoint of weaknesses. You have to have checkpoints for your weaknesses. And there's several ways to do this. But first, let me start with why this is important. If you aren't aware of what your weaknesses are, or what are the checkpoints that may draw you back into your weaknesses or cause you to fail because of your weaknesses, if you don't have a clear indication of what these areas are, you by default will be at the mercy of going what we call by chance, growth by chance. And if you remember a previous episode, we talked about growth by chance and how it really doesn't allow you to get a large return on the investment of your potential or into your potential. And so when it comes to your weaknesses, here's an example I will give you. In my life, there are friends of mine, but in a small circle. It doesn't have to be anything big, but there are people who are used in my life as weakness checkpoints, meaning they know the weak areas in my life. And they know them because I tell them. I'm very honest and open about those areas. And so these men, they check in on certain areas, especially during certain times when I have, informed them that, hey, I am, for instance, consistency. If I have been, really struggling with the weakness of consistency, because I know I'm a big picture thinker. And so my tendency is to come up with the big picture, get really inspired about it, really passionate about it. And then as soon as I get into the execution phase, that excitement begins to kind of teeter off to the point where I become inconsistent. And I hate it because I will start something and not finish it. Now, it takes a lot to admit that, because we want to all believe that we're consistent, or that voice in the back of our head would try to prevent us from admitting that to friends or people that we are close to, because we don't want to be judged, or we don't want to seem like inadequate or whatever. But I need you to understand that checkpoint is very important, because if people don't know your weaknesses, how can they help you? Just think about that from just a business perspective, a supply and demand perspective. If I don't know the need, how can I supply it? How can I create solutions that will help fill the gap, fill the need, if I don't even know that the need exists? And this is why it's important that the checkpoint of weaknesses, you need to make sure that the people in your circle know what your weaknesses are. It could be a character weakness. It could be a skill set weakness. It could be whatever. But you're much better off. The embarrassment of failing because of that weakness is far less than the embarrassment of sharing that weakness on the front end and being proactive, so that you have a team that will hold you up. It feels good to be able to go to my brothers and say, hey, yo, this week I need you to check in on me. Check me. And we don't do this anymore, but we've even gone as far as meeting up on a specific day of the week, and there's accountability. If there was something that I asked to be checked on the previous week, or two weeks previously, and I have not executed, we did something where we incorporated a monetary fine. Because number one, I don't like just giving my money away. Not to the trash. I'd rather give it away for a good cause, but not just throwing money down in the drain because I didn't show up or I didn't execute. Heck no. But that's what this can look like. So here's the question. What are your checkpoints for your weaknesses? I really want you to think about this. And when I say what, I mean like who? Who are the people? Or what are the resources you're currently using to check your weaknesses, to help you maintain consistency so that your weaknesses don't become your kryptonite? It's okay to have weaknesses. It's not okay to have weaknesses that are unchecked. Check them and use your surrounding, your team, to help you do so. All right? That's a critical checkpoint to reaching your potential. It's knowing your weaknesses and making sure you have checkpoints for those weaknesses. All right? And remember, checkpoints is a good time to remind you. It verifies current position and aids navigation. It helps you move forward. All right? I don't want to beat this one up too much because I spent a lot of time on this one. Let's move on to the next one. The next checkpoint is your plan. You need a plan. And this, I'm telling you, I'm pulling these from my personal life because this is probably the second one I've struggled with the most. I am an improviser by nature. I'm a creative, so I have no problem working quick on my feet, in the moment. And there's a place for that. There's a time and place for that. But that is not a sustainable approach to reaching and engaging your life potential. You have to have a plan. And that's we haven't even gotten to the checkpoint conversation. I just want to establish the importance first. It is very important that in your life you have a plan. And once you have that plan, there needs to be checkpoints within that plan so that you can know and be aware of your progress. Now, this may seem very, rudimentary and simple. You've probably heard this millions of times before. But here's the question. What's your plan and what are the checkpoints for that plan? What are the checkpoints to know and verify that you've moved from your current position to the next? What are the checkpoints to say, hey, I started out on this plan and here's where I'm at? And you've probably heard this in things like there's always these recommendations when you're trying to write a book or something. You have a plan to do something. I'm going to use writing a book as an example. They say it's always good to tell people that you're doing this. And this will probably sound similar to the weakness discussion. But it's always good to tell people about your plan. Why? Well, because it gets really annoying after the fourth or fifth time somebody's asked you, hey, how's that book going? Right? It gets really annoying. How's that plan going? But those are really good questions for people to be asking you because those are serving as checkpoints. So here's the main thing I want you to understand from this or take away from this. It is very easy to want to not share your plans because you don't want people asking you those questions, because you don't want the stress of not making more progress since the last time they ask. But can I encourage you to not shy away from that? Don't shy away from sharing your plan. Don't shy away from creating the plan, first off. But then don't shy away from sharing it, because those checkpoints will serve as drivers. Those will be key drivers to help you become better at, number one, doing what you say you're going to do. Because the first time you put a plan together and you share it with someone and it doesn't happen, that's going to hurt our pride, our ego. But it will also make you plan better. It will also make you plan more realistically. And by realistically, I don't mean the realistically in the sense of what you can and can't reach. I mean realistically in the sense of your intentionality and your consistency and your just perseverance for whatever that plan is. It will set your mindset up to really go after it. Checkpoints in your plan, very important. So the first checkpoint, I would say, if you have a plan, share it. That's the first checkpoint for you. If you don't have a plan, the first checkpoint for you is to create a plan. But if you've done those two things, then the third thing is for you to really analyze where you're at in that plan and why you haven't reached where you said you would. What's missing? What's in there that's still left for you to bring out another level of yourself? I'm in that area right now, transitioning from one type of career to another. Same, they're in the same umbrella, but just transitioning from into just more solo work and really being at the helm of whatever I don't eat unless I kill. You're in that hunter mentality. Whatever, if I'm I have to go out and create every day. But sharing that plan has really put the pressure on for me. Because I've now put it out there that this is the plan. And so now there are checkpoints that are automatically created. And people that are automatically going to ask me, hey, how's that going? And that's a good thing. That is a good thing. And that leads to the last one here. I like to keep these short and sweet because it's a lot. I want you to be able to take this and go put it into action versus getting a wealth of information and not knowing what to do next. So the last one is the checkpoint of growth, personal growth. And this checkpoint is in the form of impact. A great checkpoint is to analyze how many people are being impacted by your growth. How many people are either currently being impacted by your growth, or how many people will be impacted if you grow to that level that you have in mind? Because these checkpoints are all indicators along the journey to a destination. And so, for instance, let me break this down by an example. With this podcast, I've been doing this for about 28 weeks now. But I've been doing it kind of within my overall schedule, which is kind of made things a little limited. I haven't been able to really put the kind of time into this like I really want to, but I've committed to showing up because the people on the other side I value. The people listening I value. But I also have a plan, and that plan involves personal growth. And personal growth specifically in the area of just consistently being able to time manage so that I can create better content that serves all of the listeners. That is an example of me thinking about how does my personal growth serve and impact others. The checkpoints for me would be seeing and envisioning all of the people and listeners and their lives, and then the value that they get from this podcast, and then reverse engineering that. What is it going to take to provide the kind of content that will help add value in that way? That's how I kind of work through those checkpoints. So practically speaking, for me, as I mentioned earlier, kind of transitioning into a different work status, that's going to allow a little bit more time. And so now the checkpoint is, okay, time management. Time management, content creation, really thinking about the needs of the listeners and what will be helpful, what will be valuable. All those checkpoints, those are checkpoints that will make sure that I go to another level within my potential. I will have no choice because I can't reach that goal where I'm at currently in my personal growth. I have to get to the next checkpoint. I have to. And the same is true for your life. When you look at your personal growth, what are the checkpoints that will allow you to impact more people around you? How do you get to that goal of checkpoint? How can you add maybe more value to 2 or 3 more people in your life? I don't know what the answer is. I don't know in what way. I don't want you to think it has to be something, extravagant. It could be simple. It could be very simple service. It could be as simple as listening better. It could be as simple as working on self-control. It could be as simple as working on your patience, your compassion, your leadership. If we don't keep the checkpoint in mind, though, there's no reference, there's no target, there's no way to measure. And I believe these 3 critical checkpoints, the checkpoint of your weaknesses, the checkpoint of being able to make sure that you have a plan, and then the checkpoint of your personal growth. I think those 3 things combined serve very well to help us reach the potential that is within you and I. I hope you got something valuable out of this week's episode. I hope that this was something that maybe just talking about this in a different frame, because there's no new information here, but it hopefully by framing it differently, it resonates differently, and it encourages you to go out and continue kind of chipping away and engaging and going deeper into the investment of your potential. All right. I love you all. Make sure you like, subscribe, review, whatever else you can do on there. Just make sure you share this with someone who you think needs it, could use, a good message around, or encouraging message around their purpose and to help them go to the next level in their potential in their life. All right. So I'll see you all same time next week, same place, reminding you as always that success is your destiny.